the title races, though, it was a damning weekend for Arsenal and Liverpool. Henry, first of all, on Arsenal, they had an opportunity here at home to Everton. Liverpool dropped points. They could have closed that gap, but Arsenal really couldn't get themselves going on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, they've been poor for a while, like for about 3-4 weeks now. Like everyone was singing set piece again, ole ole, last month. Like, and now there's jokes coming out. They need an open play coach. Like, if you want to win a league title, you can't draw 6 games. You have got to be near on perfect. Tom will tell you that, up against the Man City side. What Arsenal are doing at the moment, failing to beat Everton. Okay, I can understand Fulham because they're a good side. But there's a blueprint out there on how to stop Arsenal now, which is just put an incredibly low, deep block. And they don't have an answer for it right now. Like Odegaard, if he's carrying a knock or whatever, I've seen him get subbed off in the last month 6 times around the hour mark. But that's supposed to be the creative source. Now, I'm not saying Arsenal are completely out of the title race, but you look at Chelsea right now and they're absolutely flying. They've got goals across absolutely everyone. When Palmer doesn't score, they're still winning games. When I look at when Saka's not on it, like he was against Monaco midweek, who else is going to turn up? I'm looking at Martin. You're not going to win a league title with players like Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus in your front three. Gabriel Jesus is not good enough. He sat on the bench at City when they needed a number 9. And Martinelli's decision-making for me, when it comes down to the final third, other than that one season where he got 15 league goals, I think he averages 7 Premier League goals a season. You're not going to win a league title with that. That's just the level at the moment. You've got to be near on perfect. Man City have dropped off massively. But they're only 3 points ahead of City. Like, this is the worst City side since 2009, and they're only 3 points above.
Really? It's only 3?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Jesus.
So if Man City go and get, let's say hypothetically, they bring in 2 players of real quality in January and a couple of loan deals. Like, I'm not saying that City are completely out of the title race, but I would say 99%. I'm looking at Chelsea Liverpool now. I've done quite a fair amount of research in this. Their next 8 games, I expect Chelsea to win all 8. Liverpool have got some tough games in there. They've got Brentford away, which is tough. They've got Forest away, which is tough. They've got Spurs. You never know which Tottenham team's going to turn up. In 3 games' time, we're at the halfway point, right? If Arsenal keep going like against, I don't think they've got an open play goal since the West Ham game, which was 4 games ago now. Like, you want to win a league title, you need more than that. As fantastic as they are from set pieces, you need more. They need to go out in the summer and buy a number 9 or a winger that can contribute 10 to 12 Premier League goals a season. Trossard's too inconsistent. Martinelli's, for me, not good enough. And this is apparently Henry Talks Arsenal right now. That game against Everton, I don't know if you guys watched it all, not good enough.
I hear you on that. I want to throw this out to the I've heard a few Arsenal fans on AFTV and other platforms state that this is on Arteta. He has become too negative. This was a manager that 2 seasons
were horrendous.
What if you agree with that? So if any of the panelists agree that Arteta has become too negative and it's taken away from the players, why do you think he's done this? And what's the outcome of this going to be?
I think basically, look, when Arteta left, he was called Pep's conman, or Pep's side chick, as in you're just pretty much copying Pep. So it was like, this is like Pep 2.0. And he realized that, look, I have to sort of maybe take a few things from Pep, but manage just to pretty much create like my own aesthetic. So I think he's now sort of like created his own aesthetic, which is different from Pep. But the issue though is that you have to have a right balance, because again, like as Henry just said, you can't win a league with Gabriel Jesus and Havertz as your strikers. That's insane. And you can't think that you can go 38 games and rely on set pieces and put all the onus on Saka and Odegaard. So I think for Arteta, and I've spoken to Arsenal fans, you vouched for Havertz. You bring in Merino. What was Merino in to do? So it's like, it is very obvious that if this team had an Isaac or a Gyökeres, just a natural goal scorer, a natural striker, Arsenal could actually do something. But the issue now is that there's so much pressure on Odegaard and Saka to either get the goals or assist that if they don't get the goals or assists, as Henry just said, then you're screwed because you can't rely on Havertz to score goals because we don't even know what his strongest position is. Gabriel Jesus literally said that goal scoring is not my thing. He actually said that. So when you have all of these issues, it's like, I think Arteta, he's got to take some blame because you've had several windows just to get a striker, just to get someone to actually give like Martinelli some competition on the wing. You knew that Trossard was a purple patch merchant. So at the end of the day, whether it's Edu, whether it's recruitment, Arsenal have not recruited well, but I think also as well, you have to strike when the iron is hot. To not win the league at least one of those last 2 seasons, Arsenal dropped the ball. You can't be top 93% of the time and not win the league. Like 2 seasons ago, how did it win? Even if I knew City would win the league, Arsenal should have won that league. So now you now have a position where you assumed Chelsea would still be rebuilding. You assumed Arne Slot would still have to readjust to a life after club. But that assumption has backfired because, oh, damn, Arne Slot has actually sort of made this team a bit more economical and a bit more effective and actually more business-like. Oh, wow, Maresca's actually sort of honed in into the strengths of the team and the team is now really now building up. So you assumed Chelsea and Liverpool would have to readjust while they now battle City. And the ironic thing is, if it went to a plan, Arsenal would be top with City a few points behind. But again, you just wrongly assumed that Chelsea and Liverpool would still be rebuilding. So Arsenal and Arteta's failure was bad recruitment, not buying a striker, and not winning the league at least once in those last 2 seasons.
Do you know which number 9 they need? Just very, very quickly, Tom. Go out there and get John Duran.
No,
go out there. Just what?
Isaac, no, I think it's Isaac. It's they did Isaac.
Yeah, but Isaac, they're not getting him in January. He's going to be
Isaac or Isaac?
I think it's Isaac.
I prefer Isaac. Yeah.
He's going to be 120 million pounds, right? Gyökeres is not leaving in January. They need 2 strikers in there.
But would Villa allow Duran to go when he's scored so many key goals from them off the bench? Would they allow him to go?
If you pay the money.
Also, let's bear them.
They were considering it over summer, and he still came off the bench last season and was scoring some goals.
Yeah,
not as many,
He's
but
like 4
still,
games.
he was.
But we're talking about a risk. So Arsenal's option is to buy a backup striker from Aston Villa, who has only really exploded this year, which is a massive amount of risk, and you're not going to get him for cheap. If Arsenal go and buy John Duran, they are effectively pricing themselves out because they won't sell enough out of
I tell a lie, they're not getting him anyway. He's just signed a new contract.
Like, isn't the issue more to do with creation though, rather than converting? In fairness,
it's both.
The problems are too predictable
right now.
Sorry,
John Duran's just on a new contract.
No, he signed a contract on October the 7th.
But that don't mean it won't be sold.
31.
But that don't mean it won't be sold. It just means he's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen. He's going to be north of 100 million now.
Arsenal's problem is that they're too mechanical. It's like Mikel Arteta has tried to control every single aspect of how Arsenal do any part of football. Yeah. And what that means is if you can read football like these top teams, analytics teams can do, you can figure out pretty much everything Arsenal are going to do in a game. They're going to try and build up slowly out the back, going down the wings, trying to isolate the wingers 1v1. If that doesn't work, they'll go back and recycle. They very rarely try and push through the middle because Kai Havertz isn't great in a physical duel. They will try and get set pieces because they are effective off set pieces. But they are just... You can predict everything Arsenal are going to do. Now, that isn't a bad thing because you could predict everything Man City were going to do for years. You could predict everything Liverpool were going to do for years. But the difference was those teams were hard to stop. Arsenal are actually really quite easy to stop as long as you can just win some headers off the corners. Because there's no quality on both sides. It is a very right-hand dominant team. Martinelli doesn't do anything when he gets hold of the ball. Arsenal are having a real problem figuring out who they want to play left centre mid. Declan Rice isn't necessarily perfect for it. Mikel Merino hasn't really, set the world alight so far. They haven't got. It's just the dynamics are so flawed in terms of dominance of a side. So I think they're just too predictable and too easy to play against. Yes, you don't score many against them, but you can make sure they don't score against you. And that's the biggest problem for Arsenal at the minute. That they are not causing teams enough problems.
I think, listen, January's massive for Arsenal because mathematically they're not out of the title race. What, they 6? I know there's a game in hand, but what is it, 6 points behind? And you guys dropping points essentially stops it from. Listen, it's a bad weekend because they should have capitalized. They're at home. They should have won that game. They should have capitalized. They should have done exactly what Chelsea have done and put that extra pressure on Liverpool, who have had a couple of poor, I know you beat Girona, but a couple of poor games, poor results on the bounce, and you have to strike while the iron is hot. January can't come soon enough for Arsenal, but if they don't do anything or they don't do enough, I would understand why Arsenal fans would be frustrated. I had this conversation about 3 years ago with a few Arsenal fans, and look, I've been really impressed with their growth. They've become a very dangerous, very frightening, dare I say it, scary team. From my perspective as a Man United fan, they did, and they were doing very, very well indeed. What I'm seeing from them this year it's not just the reserved nature they had at the beginning of last year. I do believe what you're saying. They have become a bit more mechanical, as an example. They look like they're being restrained slightly, and some players like that they've backed on, and this happens. They've put a bet on Martinelli getting back to the form of 2 seasons ago or better, and it hasn't happened. This is where Arsenal fans have to demand they act like a giant club. Most clubs give players 18 months to 2 years either to become a good player, or if they've fallen off from a certain level, they give them a little bit of time to recover and they move on from them. And they can't be sentimental. Listen, I don't think they necessarily need a number 9 per se. I think they need another person in that front line that can be somewhere close to the level of Bukayo Saka's influence on a game and output in a game. Because one, it will take more. He had 3 men on him at the weekend, Saka. 3 players marking him. That means there's space somewhere else. It just maths. It's simple. So they need someone. So it's on that left-hand side. And the only way they're going to do that, in my opinion, is money. And if they've got it, they have to spend it in January because they're only 6 points at the top. And listen, if they manage to close the gap between now and then, they may be in a position where they can get away with what's happened so far. But they've got to make those adjustments, and they have to go out in the January window. Those 2 things for me, cash money. It has to be done. If not, they're just not winning the Premier League because again, some gooners might say, why do you think that? Well, if you keep dropping points, typically speaking, that's what happens. And then the pressure goes in. What's really strange is they do look much better in the Champions League. Much better in the Champions League. But maybe that's because teams don't sit back as much. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
teams are playing out against them, aren't they? Like,
they look a lot better in the Champions League.
Yeah, if you look at Arsenal's next fixture coming up, take out Crystal Palace in the League Cup. They then play Crystal Palace in the league. Crystal Palace's game plan is going to be to sit back and counter-attack, get Arteta to hold it up and play it out wide. The question now is, how does Arteta get past that? So if it's a creation problem, then they need to figure out a way of getting the ball out wide to a Martinelli who's constantly free and getting Odegaard more space. But if that's not going to happen, when they do get it into these other areas, Martinelli's not taking his chances. I don't think Havertz has got a Premier League goal in over a month. Jesus has got 1 goal in, I think, 11 months. Then they play Brentford away. Brentford's system, we know Buemo and Wisa are in insane form.
Brentford have the best home record in the league this season. They're the only unbeaten team at home.
Then they play Brighton away. Then they play North London Derby and then Aston Villa. So the run of games they've got coming up, and if Chelsea keep pulling away, if Liverpool keep pulling away, at what point do you then turn around to the manager and say, we need to change that? I actually think Buemo would be a fantastic signing for Arsenal on the left because he can actually beat a man. Martinelli can't. I don't know if you've seen the clips. He literally does this thing where he just keeps the ball between both his legs as he's moving, as he's shuffling. That's not wing play.
No. I think basically Martinelli just had that really good purple patch before the World Cup, and since then he just fallen off a cliff. And again, because Arsenal's attack really is Saka and Odegaard. And you thought, Trossard, maybe he can add, but Trossard just had that small purple patch. But I think, again, it just goes to, this is a club that had the likes of Ian Wright, Anelka, Van Persie, Henry. You've gone from that to Shai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. That's a fall-off. And when those are your strikers and your goal scorers, where 0-0, we need someone just to produce some magic out of something, or a cross into the box, the guy can make a clever movement and do something that can now definitively give us something. You don't have that. So in that game against Everton, you just need that piece of magic from maybe your striker just to get that 1-0. If the set piece isn't working or the guy is on the bench, and now Saka is now being triple teamed. So again, it's the recruitment, man. So
Or go and get Lookman from Atalanta, who's flying at the and Go and get him.
No,
Henry,
there's no way Atletico going to sell him.
Strengthen Arsenal here. You're like, get this player.
At the moment, they need to sign someone, or they're going to be 10 points off Liverpool.
But this is where I agree with Henry, and I get where Tom's coming from. But this is where you can every single player in the world, barring Man United getting a Liverpool player, and there's a few other examples, for the right money, everybody's for sale. Every commodity in this world is for sale at the right price. They can get Lookman, they can get Gyökeres. I'm not leaving in January. If you offer Sporting enough money, they will pack Gyökeres' bags. If the money is more than they get for making it into the Champions League, they'll take the money, because clubs like that have to sell to survive. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. So it's doable for every club in January, as long as you're not got PSR problems. You can spend. So look, they have to do it. And look, and I also think the tactics have to change. Earlier on in the season, I was watching Arsenal, and they looked really hard to break down and beat. They were scoring goals, and I just thought they weren't looking scintillating, but I just thought they were playing within themselves. They were winning games. Something from sort of September, late kind of September until now. They had a few games after the international break where they looked really good again, but it's just been too intermittent. They've got to look at the way they're playing. I also think Thomas Partey being the right back, he doesn't do anything wrong defensively, but I think having someone who overlaps with Saka helps. It creates more space as well. I think that's something he has to look at. And I know they've had injury problems at the back, but again, maybe give a younger player a chance. It isn't like you're being broken down a lot on the defensive. Do something, because that isn't quite working on the offensive as well. So let's see. But Liverpool.